attachment-style theory offers the best explanation. And let me explain by telling you a story. It's the story about a little girl who grew up in an ordinary family with a father, mother, and a brother. They lived in a nice area, in a nice house, and the parents were well educated. But it's also a story about a mother who was mentally ill and who got admitted several times throughout the little girl's childhood. She suffered from anxiety, depressions, and later it turned out that she had personality disorders. So, the father was the primary caretaker in periods. He was ambitious, worked a lot, and he took care of the children's physical needs, but emotionally, he was incompetent. At times, he would demean and ridicule his children for showing emotions or not being good enough. So the little girl grew up with a mix of admiration and anxiety towards her father. When the girl was 5 years old, the mother was in a very bad traffic accident and she got hospitalized. The little girl, she was afraid that it was not just an accident and she couldn't shake the thought that she might have done it on purpose. So when the father shortly after decided to get a divorce, the little girl could not leave her mother and she stayed with her. So, at the age of 5, this little girl was already overly responsible, willing to set aside her own needs, blaming herself for her parents' bad mood. Sometimes the parents showed her affection and told her that they loved her. But for this girl, love was uncertain, and she grew up with a feeling of being unworthy of love, wrong, and ugly. Attachment-style theory says that this little girl will very likely repeat this pattern in her adult relationship, setting her own needs aside, blaming herself for her partner's bad mood, and feeling grateful for any kind of love, even if it comes with abuse. Because love is uncertain, and for this girl, it becomes a repeatedly pattern. But on the other hand, we see children that are securely attached. They will grow up being independent and confident adults with high self-esteem and the ability to create a loving and caring relationship.
About mental abuse from the victim's perspective, seeing as I was somebody who had to suffer through that in a relationship. As part of this project covered, it's extremely hard for the victim to, one, realize that this is happening because you wouldn't think, oh, hey, my significant other is actually a horrible person. And then two, just after the fact, it isn't gonna instantly, hit the victim and be like, oh, you realize this. It can take quite a while because your mind is still like, you would never do that to me, right? And honestly, the long-term effects are the worst because it doesn't just affect your next romantic relationship. It can affect even all of your friendships because of how badly your trust was broken down. And then you just can't trust anyone because you're going to feel like they're going to make you do something again. It's a very horrible process that not many people have the success of recovering from, let alone getting out of that situation. Luckily for me, I was able to leave before he actually started hitting me, because as most abuse does happen, it will eventually get physical. In the end, it's just a horrible process to look back on, which is something I try not to talk about too much unless I need to, because I'd rather not think about all of that happened, especially because I still have to deal with him at my school because of how things are working out. Of course, I never interact with him, but still having an abuser's presence isn't the best for somebody. But in the end, I've come out as a much stronger person and been able to realize I obviously did not deserve any of that, let alone just anybody else. And now I try to use my experience to talk about it and to make sure that others don't go through what I went through, and if they do, then I'm going to try to help them as best as I can, because it is an almost endless cycle when you break it down.